So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Hey guys, so do you ever feel like you're living in two different worlds? You know, there's your life in the actual world with your school, your friends, in the band, you know, playing sports, you know, and then there's your life at home. Although we probably wouldn't admit it, isn't it true that we're way weirder at home? So here's what I mean. Can't believe I'm about to say this, but when I'm at home, one of the things that I'm super quick to do is to find a new chick flick to watch. I know that it's a shock to some, but don't get me wrong, I'll always follow it up with something with a lot of action, Braveheart, Gladiator, Patriot, 300, James Bond, you know, but hold off before you judge me too much, because here's what I know for sure. You do it too. We all act in ways at home that we would never act with our friends or at public or in school. Not only are we weirder at home, but most of us are a little more difficult at home. Anybody feel me on that? Yes? No? You know, think about it like this. You would never leave your nasty gym socks on the stairs at a friend's house, but you don't think twice before doing it at your house. You know, the same thing can go with like dirty dishes. You know, you're at a friend's house and what do? You pick up the dish, go put it in their sink, and maybe wash it off. But at your house, you're just like, whatever. You know, you would never talk to your coach the same way that you would talk to your parents or your step-parents. You would never be as mean to your teammate as you are to your brother or sister. I know a lot of y'all understand that. I do too. But like me, you probably don't go off nearly as quick on anybody outside your house as you do on the people inside your house. But how is that possible? More importantly, why is this? We act in two completely different ways depending on where we are. Like, why do we do that? You know, there may be a lot of reasons for this, but I think one of the main reasons, especially for me, is I think of home as my world and everyone else is just, you know, living in it. So maybe we don't say it out loud, but, you know, we walk in the door and we instantly want to know if what's happening for dinner, like what we're having for dinner, is something that we like. I know you all feel me on that. I already know. You know, we complain about going to our siblings' band concert or sporting event, you know, because we had other plans. We wanted to do something completely different. You know, it's our world, and we want it to be our way. But that's not nearly as true anywhere else. You know, most of us wouldn't go to a friend's house for dinner and be like, "You made lasagna? Lasagna? I don't know about that. You know I hate lasagna. Why would you make that?" You know, we would never tell our coach, yeah, I'm not going to come to the game today. You know, I wanted to hang out with some friends instead. You know, or at least I would not recommend saying that. Even if we know that we can get attitude with people at school and, and stuff like that, it's never to the level we go at home. For some of us, home feels like the only place it's safe to be the realest version of ourselves. The people we live with, hopefully, still love us, even when we're ridiculous. But at the same time, we all tend to be not just the realist, but the worst version of ourselves. So no matter what is happening, I ask myself this question: how does this affect me? I mean, think about it. Everything that we say or do at home is in response to how that question is answered. How does it affect me? Maybe we would say, my family loves hamburgers, but I'm a vegetarian. So what do? They go out for burgers after the game, and I'm over here, trying not to puke, eating like the black bean version of this stuff. So I make a point to let every single person know how bad this is over and over. So maybe it's, I don't get to go out with my friends because I have to babysit. So how does that affect me? Well, that isn't fair. So I'm going to give my parents a lot of attitude. Maybe it's this one. I studied so hard for my test last night while my sister scrolled through TikTok all night. And she got a better grade than me. So how does that affect you? Well, she doesn't deserve that A. So obviously now I'm annoyed with her and I'm treating her that way. So what a lot of us don't realize as we think about our life at home is how much our response to the question, how does this affect me, can completely change like the vibe in our house. Like it can twist it, as we respond to how things are affecting us. The people in our house are responding to how we are affecting them. Then we respond to that. And most of us don't realize we're playing a key role in the general feeling of our house. Is that always true? No. But for some of us, we know we're at least a part of the tension and attitude where we live. The question is, what do you do about it? What do you do when things are tough at home? When the mood is off? When you're part of the reason why things are getting tense? But you have no idea what to do about it. So listen, you don't need to tell me that family is hard. But the good news in all of this is that the difficulty that you face with your family isn't unique to you. And it's been going on for thousands of years. In fact, one of the things I love most about the real events of the Bible is how it gives us a real look at real people who lived real lives with real problems. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to spend some time looking at the life of Joseph. So Joseph was one of the most famous people in the first half of the history found in the Bible. He is a guy who, just like us, found himself in all kinds of situations where he just didn't know what to do. So Joseph's story is wild. And it's like the most dramatic Netflix show that you will ever watch. Like, there's murder plots. He's sold into slavery. He's unfairly put in jail. The story twists and turns everywhere, and the drama never stops. We will get to all that in the next couple weeks. But it all starts with the drama with his family. So I'm about to give you some background information real quick. Joseph was one of 12 sons. who all had Jacob as their dad. Now, Jacob's story was kind of complicated. He fell in love with a woman named Rachel. She's going to be over here. But he was tricked into marrying Rachel's sister, Leah. But Jacob loved Rachel. So he worked for Rachel's father for 7 years so that he could marry her too. So if you're keeping count, that leaves Jacob with 2 wives. They were sisters. That sounds like a crazy show on like TLC or something. There were also 2 other women that he never married, but he still had children with. And plot twist, Rachel, the wife that Jacob loved most, couldn't have children. While the other 3 women were giving him kids, Rachel couldn't until all of a sudden she was pregnant with Joseph. He was like the miracle baby, and Jacob, the dad, was super crazy about him. And that means in this family, with 1 father, 4 mothers, and 12 sons, there was some kind of tension. Because it was no secret who the favorites were. This is where we pick up in the life of Joseph. So for those watching on YouTube, the link to the video that we're about to watch is going to be in the description of the video. So go ahead and pause this video and head over to that link and watch the first 3.5 minutes. Now, this wasn't your typical dream, and the brothers knew it. This dream wasn't about grain. It was about power. And Joseph was sending a message by sharing the dream. He was like, hey guys, listen to this. I think, I know that I'm going to be more powerful than you one day. And when that day comes, you're all going to worship me, right? And for a younger brother to say this to the older brothers, that was not gonna fly. And the passage goes on and it says, his brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of this dream and what he said. That's Genesis 37, verse 8. So the vibe here was really harsh. You know, Joseph's brothers were all over his robes and dreams, and then Joseph had another dream involving the sun and moon and stars bowing down to him. And it was the same message, but this time it included his parents bowing down as well. He tells his dad, Jacob, and his brothers, who now hated him even more, not really the best move for Joseph. So can you imagine the kind of tension in this family? 1 dad, 4 moms, and a dozen boys. And now you're telling me that the favorite son who goes around telling people he's having visions of everyone bowing down? Why would he do that? But Joseph wasn't acting in a way that considered any of that. Joseph was behaving like all of us do in our family sometimes. Hyper aware of how we are being treated and not really aware of how it affects anybody else. So, and Joseph's family was the same way. All Joseph's brothers could see was how the whole situation affected them. The unfairness and the injustice. I mean, Joseph receiving the robe he did as a gift was like being given a brand new car when he turned 16, while the brothers had to share like the ancient like 1999 minivan. You know, it wasn't right, and they saw that. The truth is, even though we see these few verses are about more than some strange dreams and a coat, it is about how the tension in the family was never dealt with. The tension was left to grow. We are still reading this story today for a reason. Why? It's to show us that the family has always been complicated. That a family has always had problems. It's to teach us to pay attention how our actions and even our situations can affect the people who we live with. It it's also to remind us that tension left unresolved will never go away. It's always going to escalate to something bigger. So next week we're going to see how Joseph escalated to a biblical dumpster fire kind of situation. But until then, what could everyone in the family have done differently? So for starters, Joseph could have started to see himself as part of the problem, as one person in a large family and not the center of it. So we also see that the dad could have recognized how his favoritism was impacting everybody, how the brothers were so jealous. We also see how the brothers could have chilled out just a little bit on the grudges and the gossip about Joseph. And fourth, we see that everybody could have ignored Joseph's dream and not allowed their insecurity to control them. The point is, Joseph's family drama isn't all that different from our own. Whether you're the favorite one, the angry one, the firstborn, the lastborn, the quiet one, or the one with a gold medal and door slamming, the truth is the same. There's a role that you play in your family. So pay attention to how your words and your actions contribute to the tone and the temperature of the house. Are you improving it, or are you making it more tense? Then decide what you want your role to be from here on out. In other words, pay attention to how you affect your family. Then choose how you'll treat them. If you aren't sure where to begin, take a look at this passage in the letter that Paul wrote to the church of Philippi. In some ways, these people worked out a lot like family, and they were trying to figure out how to live together. So, in a letter, Paul writes, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who, being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." And that's Philippians 2, verses 3 through 8. So Paul says, look, Jesus sets the example here. He gave up the privilege that came with being God. He deserved to be treated like God, but he didn't require that of people. He chose to serve and have compassion on humans, even when they didn't deserve it at all. And Paul is reminding the Philippian church and us to be that kind of person with those around us. So, here's a $1 million question. How do we do that when we don't know what to do at our house? So we can start by paying attention to how we see ourselves. Do we think or act like we're better than people in our house or in our family? Maybe. Is that accurate? Probably not. So what would it look like to treat our siblings, our step-siblings, our cousin, or, the adults in our house as equal, or maybe even more important than ourselves? And finally, and maybe hardest of all, we need to invite someone else to speak into how we treat our family. Honestly, it's nearly impossible to clearly see the role we play in our family, but others around us can see it. And by asking them, they can help us see ourselves and our families with 2020 vision. In fact, asking someone older or wiser is one of the best things to do when you don't know what to do. So imagine for a second if everybody in your family did this. What if everyone in your family paid attention to how they affect everyone else? What would it do for your relationship with the people who live at your house? What would it do for the general level of tension or peace at your house? What if it started with you? It could. Let's pray. Lord, we love you and we thank you for everything that you've done. Lord, thank you for allowing us to come together and just to kind of dive into the life of Joseph. Lord, we know that sometimes there's tension in our family, and we know that sometimes it can be very difficult in our life. But Lord, we know that with you, if we put our trust in you, Lord, it can always be resolved. Lord, we ask that this week you help us to be the kind of person that Paul was encouraging us to be. And Lord, we ask this all in your precious and humble name. Amen.